All right, yes, I get it. You're looking at this video. You see a guy in a sweater about to talk about the G League Ignite in 2025. But I've got some notes here, and I think we need to just talk about this because we're getting to the point at this point in the NBA season where a lot of these guys from the G League Ignite are in year 2, year 3, even year 4, as far back as 2021 with Jalen Green and Jonathan Kuminga and some of the other guys. So I feel like it's time where we can finally kind of put a bow on what was and what unfortunately isn't the G League Ignite anymore. Because I have to admit, I'm somebody who, when the G League Ignite was announced, I was very excited. I was bought in. The NBA promotion was incredible. They made us think, and at least made me think, that this was really the new wave of draft prospects and who we can expect at the top of the draft, where they're coming from. It was no longer going to be all just college basketball or even all international prospects. I really thought, with the way that the NBA was talking about the G League Ignite, this was something we were going to see for years to come. And the first class of the NBA G League Ignite team had some ups and downs, but it had a lot of talent. Jalen Green at the top of the draft, Jonathan Kuminga as well. But then there were some other guys in that class that were kind of the first sign that maybe G League Ignite wasn't exactly what everyone was hoping for and expecting. I'm talking about Isaiah Todd and Daishen Nix. These are two guys that, when you look at the current landscape of the NBA, they're pretty much nowhere to be found, which is really unfortunate. But it didn't just stop there. You go to 2022, the year after the Jalen Green class, and you've got guys like Dyson Daniels and Marjon Beauchamp really leading the way for that G League Ignite team. But then again, for 2 years in a row, there were players that just didn't really work out how we were expecting. Really thinking about Jaden Hardy here, a guy who, you can go back here on League Bound. I was maybe the highest person among our League Bound crew for a guy like Jaden Hardy. I thought his ball handling ability, his playmaking, his offensive aggressiveness of getting to his spot, his jump shooting was really impressive going into that year's draft class. And that was really the first year where us at League Bound were really a thing. We didn't really get to talk much about Jalen Green and Jonathan Kuminga and some of these other guys. They were the year before we got this whole thing started. But then 2022 came around, and that was really our first class here on YouTube where we got to kind of dig our teeth into that class and make some analysis on a lot of these guys. And going into it, I was high on Jaden Hardy, but unfortunately, some of his performances here with the G League Ignite were just not what you were hoping for. The efficiency fell off, and he eventually fell into the second round. And another guy I was high on, Michael Foster Jr., who was someone who was a big, kind of a bigger forward, almost a four-man, who can make some plays on the perimeter. But that's another name that just never was able to stick in the NBA. He was undrafted, signed with Philadelphia, only appeared in one game back in that 2022-23 season. So he's just another example of G League Ignite, what we were promoted to be, the next big thing and the next way that prospects were going to start coming into the NBA. But just unfortunately, the development and the consistency of the prospects was not really there. But for these first 2 years, you at least had 3 draft picks in both 2021 and 2022. But then you go to 2023, and this was maybe the peak of the G League Ignite program. You've got Scoot Henderson, who went in and had, remember, that big showcase game against Victor Wembanyama, had some impressive highlights in that one. And, it's still early for a guy like Scoot Henderson's career to really make any judgments. We still haven't seen him play in the 2025 regular season, but from what we've seen from his first couple of years in the NBA, it's looked pretty good at times. He's very good at getting downhill, very physical guard. He clearly has the physical makeup to handle an NBA workload as a lead guard, but it's still just year 2 and year 3. We're still waiting on that development from Scoot Henderson, especially as a perimeter shooter. But he's had some games with the Portland Trailblazers where he's shown some development and some growth as a three-point shooter, which was maybe the main question mark we had when he was coming out of G League Ignite, which was a problem because that was a big question mark we had going in to G League Ignite. So for him to finally start developing that jump shot is, I think, a very good sign for the future of not just Scoot Henderson, but for the future of the Portland Trailblazers, who just had a big win over the Oklahoma City Thunder this week. And once they can bring in Scoot Henderson for potentially a year 3 jump that we're seeing from some of his other draft class members, like a guy like Victor Wembanyama, who might be the MVP this year, or a guy like Amen Thompson, who might be an all-defensive team member and one of the best players on the Houston Rockets. He has taken a leap. So, is Scoot Henderson going to be that next guy? We still don't know. And outside of Scoot Henderson, there were 3 other NBA draft picks from that 2023 kind of crop of talent for G League Ignite. You've got guys like Leonard Miller, Sidi Sissoko, and Mojave King. I was a big Mojave King guy as like a second-round sleeper. That jumper was nice. But unfortunately, again, has kind of seemed like the trend with this G League Ignite program, guys really didn't elevate much draft stock at all. And you look ahead to the next year in 2024, what unfortunately ended up being the final year of the G League Ignite program. You've got a couple of guys who made an impact. Of course, talking about Ron Holland eventually getting drafted by the Detroit Pistons. And then you've got Modest Buzelis, who might be the best of this G League crop so far with the Chicago Bulls. He looks like he is maybe a favorite for most improved player here in the 2025 season. He's had a lot of really nice plays for the Chicago Bulls here in year 2. He's had a lot of chances to have the ball in his hand, shoot from the perimeter, make some plays getting downhill. He looks really good. And then you've got an early second-round pick with a guy like Tyler Smith, who, again, here at LeagueBound, we liked the talent of a guy like Tyler Smith to be able to make some plays from the three-point line as a taller, maybe 3-4 kind of hybrid, had some great leaping ability, had a couple of posters as well in the G League Ignite season. And you've also got a guy like Izano Manza, who played a couple of games with them, but really has not been able to turn anything into an NBA career, unfortunately. So I kind of wanted to run through what we saw from these 4 G League Ignite teams, just to kind of give anyone who might not be as familiar with this former program that the NBA G League was running, what it kind of produced and what it was like for these kids. And if you're not familiar, it was a program that was started kind of before this whole NIL movement took off in the world of college basketball. It was a chance for some of the highest ranked prospects, some of the prospects that a lot of scouts had on their board already as projected lottery picks. They were going to go play in the G League and play against, current pros rather than go to college, have to take classes and maybe hold off on making a lot of money and have to play against their peers rather than maybe potentially what was promoted to us as get better physically so that you are way more prepared for day one in the NBA. You get to see what life is like as a pro. You get to work alongside veterans like Jarrett Jack and Amir Johnson, who I think was really impressive that this program was able to get some of the vets like that, guys who were able to stick in the NBA for 10, 15 years, to kind of get in their ear and just talk to them and give them some game about how to stay in the league. But as I said, it was kind of before this really big movement with the NIL and the improvement and that's been able to do for a lot of these college prospects. And I think that's kind of where we have to start for why this thing no longer exists. I mean, you've got guys with the college basketball now making multiple millions of dollars to pick a school either in the transfer portal or as true freshmen. We've got recruits who are being offered boatloads of cash to play at a specific Power 5 school. That wasn't something that a lot of these guys in the earlier portion of G League Ignite as a franchise, as a program, were offered the opportunity to do. I mean, we all know about the rumors and kind of the history of, maybe some shadier ways to get guys money. But ever since the development of official NIL deals, I mean, we're seeing players on State Farm commercials and Gatorade commercials and different shoe commercials now as college players. I mean, it seemed like every single college basketball or NBA commercial break, I was seeing a New Balance commercial with Cooper Flagg when he was a freshman at Duke last year. So the landscape of why and how this program was going to kind of help some of these top prospects changed almost overnight. And all of a sudden, the benefits, one of the main benefits of kind of being a pro or making a lot of money as a G League player rather than, essentially not getting paid as a college player, that all kind of went away. And I think maybe that's the biggest reason why the G League Ignite failed, but it's definitely not the only reason. Because as I've talked about, there are examples of success stories. I mean, you think about a guy like Dyson Daniels, had some solid years with the New Orleans Pelicans, but he absolutely broke out last year when he was traded and played for the Atlanta Hawks because his defense was something we knew was good coming out of G League Ignite, but I mean, this guy led the NBA in steals a year ago and looks like potentially a cornerstone for that Atlanta Hawks franchise. I mean, who knows what the future is going to look like for Trae Young, but I feel like a young player like Dyson Daniels is got to be someone who isn't even getting paid that much money, but that's got to be someone you try to hold on to as much as possible. And even if they do try to move him, he's going to be someone that has immense value in a potential trade. And I think you could even throw a guy like Jalen Green in there as a success story. I mean, he's been terrific scoring the basketball. There's been some seasons where the inefficiency has left you kind of scratching your head, but if you look at straight box scores, and Jalen Green isn't even 27 years old yet, he's averaging 20 points per game pretty much since he arrived in the NBA. He's obviously yet to play a game this season with the Phoenix Suns, but I'm kind of excited to see with how Devin Booker's been playing for Phoenix, how is Jalen Green going to kind of fit in next to him as a backcourt member? Both of them are dynamic scorers with the ball in their hands. Who knows how it's going to work in Phoenix? And of course, as I talked about, Modest Buzelis with the Chicago Bulls might be a favorite for most improved player. I think he certainly could win it, especially with the way that the Chicago Bulls have been playing this season, one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference, and he's been a big reason for it. He's had a couple of games of over 20 points. He can find guys as a playmaker. He's a good rebounder, good defender, good dribbler as well with the basketball. And I think the more that Modest Buzelis gets to run the offense, there's a good chance that Chicago is going to be even better. But I want to kind of get back to the point of this, and it's not just that NIL kind of ruined the G League Ignite program, because there are other factors. I think one of the biggest ones that was causing issues was G League Ignite's bringing in some of the best and highly recruited prospects for the NBA draft. But when you really think about all the players that went through there are very, very few examples of guys that went to G League Ignite as maybe the late lottery projected and ended up, because of playing with the G League Ignite, ended up becoming top 5 picks. I mean, yes, Jalen Green was a top 3 pick. Yes, Scoot Henderson finished inside the top 3, but these guys were projected to be top 3 picks when they went to G League Ignite. You have to look at someone like a Marjon Beauchamp or a Michael Foster, guys who had some talent in high school and had some talent when they arrived to G League Ignite, but there really are not examples of guys like that who played well against pros and really significantly improved their draft stock. There were chances for some top prospects to choose G League Ignite, but they weren't choosing it, I think, because guys were not elevating their draft stock as much as, college players were, due to the ability to get paid in college, play against their peers, have a better chance at dominating because they're not playing 25 and 30-year-olds who are hungry to get back into the NBA. But it's not just that either. It's because you look at college basketball and the way that it's showcased on national TV, ESPN, ABC, Fox Sports, all that kind of stuff. The big-time matchups are getting these prospects with a lot of eyes on them, millions of viewers at times, especially when you think about March Madness on CBS and the viewership that March Madness gets every single year. I mean, we just saw a ton of top prospects from this previous draft class in the Final Four. You think about Cooper Flagg, Kon Knippel, Kaman Maluach. All these guys got to play with millions of people watching, but with the G League Ignite, a lot of times they were kind of put on ESPN Plus, NBA.com. It just wasn't the same viewership, and I think a lot of that maybe hurt the branding and the promotion of these players. It wasn't necessarily all on the NBA. I mean, the NBA did all they could to really put the G League Ignite in our face. They talked about it a lot. There were a lot of commercials and promos put out about it saying, check out these top prospects. These guys are the future of the NBA. But when you just look at the pure numbers, college basketball is doing the same thing. And are you really going to watch G League Ignite against the Fort Wayne Mad Ants? Or are you going to watch Duke and North Carolina go at it on a Friday or a Saturday night? I mean, most people are picking college basketball. But one last thing I want to talk about for how this program just fell apart. And this was actually a good point that I really agreed with. I was watching recently with the Numbers on the Board podcast, and they talked about how putting all of the prospects on the same G League Ignite team may not have been actually the best route in order to fully get these guys on display as a showcase for the future of the NBA. I think they talked about maybe it would have been better to split them up on different teams to have them match up against each other. And I really agree with that because, sometimes when I'm feeling nostalgic, I'll go back and watch old college basketball highlights from 2019, for example, with Duke and Gonzaga playing in Hawaii. I mean, you got Zion Williamson, RJ Barrett, and Cam Reddish going up against Gonzaga with Rui Hachimura and some of those other players on that Gonzaga team. It was an electric atmosphere, but it was so much fun to see, top prospects go head to head. You see Zion Williamson and Rui Hachimura battling in the post, trying to get a rebound. Like, that is what's exciting. That's what's fun to see, top prospects get head to head and see who is better on that day. You don't really get to do that with G League Ignite when the team is all together. I mean, yeah, you get to see them, but as they said on that podcast, there is a bit of redundancy with that roster makeup. And I think it would have been better if you could get, Jalen Green versus Jonathan Kuminga, two guys who are projected to be lottery picks, and all of a sudden they're going head to head. That would, I would think, improve the promo, improve the viewership and the want to for people to actually tune in to these G League games. And also, you would get more travel involved. You would get fans from different areas of the country going to check out the G League teams that feature all sorts of different prospects. It's not just one team traveling in, kind of a secluded area to play these showcase games. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm rambling at this point, but yeah, I just feel like at this point in 2025, with the G League Ignite being over for now, I think a year since they've shut down, I think it's time to finally put a bow on the history and the look back at the G League Ignite. There's some success stories, but there are far too many unfortunate disappointments that guys that we liked, a lot of them here at League Bound, that just never really turned into those superstar players. There are a few who went in the second round, have been solid role players. Like Jaden Hardy isn't necessarily a failure or a disappointment. He's had times with the Dallas Mavericks as a very solid backup playmaker and point guard. But man, I just really thought going into that draft class that Jaden Hardy was going to be a lottery pick, potentially a franchise changer, and unfortunately, it just never happened. But yeah, that's it. I just wanted to talk about that for a little bit. If you guys like these videos, go ahead and let us know here in the comments section. If you don't, we'll never do it again. I just feel like it's fun to kind of have these moments to just ramble on and talk about a topic you were thinking about that day. So yeah, that's what we're doing here. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back later.